Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys in California. Before I begin, getting of all praise, it's the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who is wisdom? Who is the Holy Spirit? Acknowledgement to Yahweh Shai. I pray the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past, in order to understand events that are currently happening on the earth, so we get a much better understanding of the things that are soon to come on the earth. Brethren, this evening we're going to get clarification as to where these Gentiles came up with accusing us of child sacrifice. You're going to see with these older books, in the early 1800s, when the Most High was making these Gentiles write these books, that he was making them admit the truth, knowing that here at the end, after 2019, as we get closer and closer to 2024, and that X marks a spot over here in America, that he was going to release this information back to his people. And they were going to see how the Gentiles manipulated old stories for their gain, for their benefit. See, they're always blaming the pagans for child sacrifice and killing people and ripping out their entrails and doing all these horrible and heinous things, because that was their justification for doing the things they've always wanted to do to us. They've always wanted to kill us and destroy us, because you know what? We were doing those things to them. When we were with our power, the Most High empowered us to be able to take down the other nations, and they have always been waiting for their opportunity to do the same to us. And you're going to see that also talked about in these other books and these other Bibles as well. But let's get into this, because it's quite a bit of information about their justification and how they switched the story and just added to an old tradition, and then they used that against our people. We went from being the Jews and the Israelites, and the Most High's chosen people, the Christians, the ancient Christians. That's what we used to be called. Then all of a sudden we became the pagans. We became the devil worshipers. And we became the ones who were, operating in child sacrifice. And that these churches needed to be raised up in order to destroy our Satan worshiping ancestors. But you're going to see that there was no proof to any of these accusations. And that's what you even see today. Many accusations, but no proof. That's why you got to be very careful with people to say they're in the truth and they're Israelites and everything else, because they'll do exactly the same things that the church does. The church just makes accusations with no proof, and people, even in the so-called truth, will make accusations and call you a witch and say that you're practicing magic, and they somehow know that you're practicing magic in your house when they've never even been to your home. They've never had any contact with you at all. But that's what these other nations have been able to do, is just make unfounded accusations. So let's check this out. Another book that the Most High blessed us with. And you know what? I'm going to say a special thank you and even like a prayer to the gentleman who hooked us up with these books. I'm pretty sure he's a Gentile, but he seemed to have taken a liking to me, and he hooked us nation up with these books. And that's the thing, the Most High is blessing this individual, and he doesn't even know it. He's helping the Israelites. He's helping us regain our knowledge again, and he's probably not even aware of it whatsoever. And that's the beautiful thing. Some people are being blessed with the opportunity to bless the Israelites, and many people don't even realize it. That's why I was never about everyone in this group is, is an Israelite. Everybody in this group is damned and everything else, because the Most High is the one that put this gentleman in a position to be able to give us our books back. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, the Most High is going to have a testimony. Going to be like, hey, you remember when you helped this gentleman who came into your shop? You remember when you gave him a discount on his records? You were blessing the Israelites. Maybe unknowingly to you, but the Most High gave him an opportunity to receive a blessing. And see, that's what, the Most High is doing right now. He's giving you guys an opportunity to hear this truth and make changes. Imagine how much more you could be blessed if you know who the Israelites are and you go out of your way. Instead of blessing the churches, the abominable church, you actually begin to bless the Israelites, the true Israelites. Because Most High said, if you bless them, I will bless you. If you curse them, I will curse you. So he's telling you, once you realize who the real Israelites are, that's when you need to show faith and cleave to these people and bless them. So this book right here, like I said, it's called Phantasmata, or Illusions and Fanaticisms of Protean Forms Productive of Great Evils, by R.R. Madden. Okay? Authors of Travels in the East, Shrines and Sepulchres, Life, okay, of Savonarola, Memoirs of Lady Blessington, okay? So 1857, So these guys are giving all this information when we weren't allowed to read. When, they were, Most High was making them write this information down. So we're going to get into this part right here, chapter 4. On the sacrifice of children ascribed to the early Christians as a religious rite, and to sorcerers and the orgia of their Sabbath assemblies at a later period. Now see, this is the whole thing. Christians is like a word that has like a very big umbrella. See, the original Christians were the Israelites, and they wanted to steal that name. They wanted to pretty much take the place of the true Israelites, who were the true Christians. So therefore, they had to make false accusations in order to give them justification to destroy our people. And that's what you're going to see is going on right here. And it tells you who does it, who did it back then, and who does it still even today. So again, on the sacrifice of children ascribed to the early Christians as a religious rite. See, as the early Christians, you're going to see right here are the Israelites. This is why you can't be like, oh, well, they were persecuting Christians, and Rome was persecuting Christians, and this and that. Yeah, they were persecuting Israelites. Those were your early Christians. But that's what's been hidden from you. It says, how comes it that this idea in all ages, amongst all people, has prevailed, of sorcery being connected with a rage for killing children and feasting on their flesh? Like, where does this come from? Where does this thought come from about these Christians doing these horrible things? Okay? Let's see. Or partaking of their blood, or making an ointment of the residue of those remains to enable sortilegi, strigus, lestrigionis, lamiae, by friction with it, to come like shadows, so depart, ride in the air, and to celebrate infernal orgies at their nocturnal Sabbaths. Talking about they made a connection between the Sabbaths. Who has the Sabbath? The Israelites. That was, something that was given to their people, observing the Sabbath. Early Christians, but they, interlocked or interconnected these early Christians, these Israelites, with child sacrifice. What do they do when they came over to the Americas? Oh, these Native Americans were, they were participating in child sacrifice. That there alone lets you know that They were the Israelites. They were the northern kingdom, because the same accusations they did with the southern kingdom over there in Europe, they just brought those same accusations over here into the new world. Exactly the same thing. Okay, now check this out. It was an early superstition of the Jews. Who were the early Christians? The Jews. The early Christians were the Israelites. So, okay, so right, that's what he's talking about right now. That it's a superstition of the Jews. Again, it was an early superstition of the Jews. Okay, Kalmiel refers to an ancient rabbinical tradition embodying the principal feature of the child-killing diabolical sorcery. Okay, this all revolves around the Israelites. Okay, it says Adam, according to this tradition, was first married to a sorceress named Lilith, or the mother of devils. This Megara was a perverse being, refused submission to the will of Adam, and even commands from heaven, conveyed to her by angels. She persisted in her resolutions, and one day, after invoking the name of Jehovah, according to the prescribed rules of the Kabbalah, she took flight and disappeared in the air. This must have been a relief to Adam, but it was none to his immediate descendants. We may pass over lightly the extreme antiquity of the Kabbalah. It is quite sufficient for us that the legend is as old as the rabbins, whose traditional lore was deemed of an ancient date in the first ages of Christianity. Again, these teachings come from early Christianity, from the Israelites. We're talking about Gentiles. Lilith, we are told, became in course of time the terror of all Judea. See that? She's the terror of the Jews, of the Israelites. If an epidemic prevailed in that country that was fatal to children, the people said it was Lilith, who had transformed herself into an aerial specter who put them to death. If the Ancient of Days of the synagogue were asked why many newborn children were taken away towards the 8th day of their birth, the ancients replied, "It is Lilith who made them perish," in the hope of preventing the evil influence of Lilith. The newly married used to inscribe the names of 3 angels on the internal walls of their dwelling, and on the exterior of it, the names of Adam and Eve, and at a little distance, the words, "Begone, Lilith." He said there's a whole lot more going on, than meets the eye. The Bible only gives you some information, but there's a lot more going on. Gradually, the name of Lilith was given to Jewish women of bad repute or suspected of commerce with demons. Okay. Finally, this name became the signification of destruction, of a propensity to homicide. The wretches who were supposed affiliated to the sect of Lilith were represented with bare necks. They were said to have the art of appeasing the cries of infants by offering them the breast and suffocating them in the stillness of night, after having calmed them by insidious caresses. The legend of Lilith transmitted from age to age, from people to people, introduced into the traditions and literature of many countries, but always recognizable through the various transformations, additions, and embellishments which the different tastes for allegory of different nations had been the cause of, eventually became a prevalent traditional idea that the practice of sorcery was necessarily allied with an indomitable propensity to homicide. So here's your, sorcery, your, magic, and your child sacrifice. Okay, this is other nations that are actually doing this. Okay, Torre Blanca refers to this ancient superstition of the Jews. Again, this is all about the Israelites, who on their bedposts were wont, he says, to affix an inscription with these words, Et zelo tuit zililith, that the person on whose bed these words were might be delivered by the protection of Lilith from the nocturnal devil. And against this nocturnal demon, the use of phylacteries was also in vogue. Now check this part out. Here we go. Now you're going to see how the other nations played into all this. And this is how it got all started, where they could blame the Israelites for these horrible practices. The Greeks consecrated the idea of the connection of sorcery with child killing in their mythology and their poetry. A daughter of Neptune named Lamia, a reputed sorceress, was a great slayer of children. There were various kinds of sorceresses, but all of homicidal tendencies. Some of them passed into Rome and acquired a local habitation and a name in Italy. They transformed themselves there, especially into ferocious and rapacious animals. One sort were called striges, sorceresses of an old age who sought to restore their debilitated powers, often under the guise of owls, frequenting places of sepulture, for the purpose of feeding on human flesh, and in the silence and stillness of night, stealing invisibly into houses and leaving newborn children drained of their blood, exanimate in their cradles. The Romans in the eastern provinces, you see, these things were first enacted in the eastern provinces of Rome, and then it was just carried over into the western areas of Rome. Okay, so the Romans in the eastern provinces of their empire in the 2nd century charged the Christians, and we already know there that the early Christians were the Israelites. In the 2nd century, charged the Christians, Israelites, with the practice of killing a child and eating the blood mixed with flour at their religious ceremonies. So this is their justification for killing us off and then taking our homes, taking our women, taking our children, enslaving our men. They give you the option of becoming a Catholic or a Christian like their Christianity. And if you don't, you will be killed. So this is how they did it. Right here again, the Romans in the eastern provinces of their empire in the 2nd century charged the Christians, and then we know the Christians are the Israelites, with the practice of killing a child and eating the blood mixed with flour at their religious ceremonies. Where it says the idea of the supposed revels of sorcerers at their assemblages was derived from the orgia of the Romans. From Italy, the prevalent idea of the connection of sorcery and child murder crept into the superstitions of all Europe. It pervaded the witchcraft of France, Germany, Spain, and Portugal, the Slavonic nations, and the British islands. The practice of anthropography, or anthropophagy, says Calmiel, among the people of Europe, may then be classed in the rank of fictions, and children have never been exposed to the fury of demon worshippers. Jamais la enfants, something like that, exposes in realite a la fureur des demolatres, something like that. Saint Epiphanius enters largely into the abominable crimes, which from the time of the Emperor Adrian were charged against the Christians. Again, Christians are Israelites. And many persons laid these crimes to the account of the Gnostics. From the writings of the two great apologists of, and we'll stop it right there. We'll continue more later on, but I just wanted you guys to see, what's going on here. You see that this whole information here, this whole information about Lilith was part of the superstition of the Jews. These early Jews were the original Christians. Let's go back here. Right there in the middle. It was an early superstition of the Jews. Okay? And if you keep reading, it talks about, all of a sudden start talking about the early Christians, the ancient Christians. Again, it was an early superstition of the Jews. About killing children and drinking the blood is an early superstition of the Jews, linked to Lilith. Right? And you talk at the top right there, it says, we may pass over lightly the extreme antiquity of the Kabbalah. It is quite sufficient for us that the legend is as old as the rabbins, whose traditional lore was deemed of an ancient date in the first ages of Christianity. So we're talking about the Jews, now we're talking about the first dates of Christianity. Okay? And it's a story right there. And the story was connected with the Jews, with the Israelites. Okay? And they were just using this. Now you go down to the Greeks. The Greeks consecrated the idea of the connection of sorcery with child killing in their mythology and their poetry. Okay? And later on, some of them passed into Rome and acquired a local habitation, okay, and a name in Italy. Okay? And then the Romans in the eastern provinces of their empire in the 2nd century charged the Christians, Jews, Israelites, with the practice of killing a child and eating the blood mixed with flour. And they did that in the east first, and then later on, they just continued it in the western part of Rome. Then after they finished, destroying our people over here, then the Most High let them come over here and destroy our brethren that were here in the Americas, fulfilling the prophecy in Jeremiah about Judah, right, and the northern kingdom being enslaved together. So as you can see right here, this is where all those accusations about, sacrificing children, killing them, drinking their blood, all that stuff was an old tale, an old story of the Israelites. And the other nations took it, ran with it, and eventually they used it as their basis and their foundation for destroying the Israelites and because they were the original Christians. All praise is the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who is wisdom? Who is the Holy Spirit? Acknowledgement Yahweh Shai. Shalom.